Hi, friends. Was I surprised when I discovered that my Lisa Eldridge package arrived over the weekend? I ordered my Lisa Eldridge products last Thursday, and I think the package arrived either Saturday or Sunday. I was expecting for it to arrive this week, but I was pleasantly surprised because I went into that box fast and went on my close friends live stream to share what I purchased, as well as make comparisons with the Pat McGrath Labs FetishEYES liquid eyeshadow products. I wanted to compare what Lisa's Lurex liquid eyeshadows were like with the FetishEYES. So today I wanted to share what I purchased and also make those comparisons with the FetishEYES. So if you wanted just to skip over to that portion of the video, you'll find the time stamp down below, or if you want to scroll over here on the time bar, you can then find that chapter to begin. I bought 2 gloss embraces in Dancing Rose and Sorcery. Had to get Dancing Rose. The description reads, a blend of rose pink, lavender, and violet, tiny glittering pearls suspended in a clear glossy base, resulting in a cool tone, subtly sparkling iridescence. And I'm so happy that Lisa decided to add more pearl finishes to her gloss embrace lineup, because the gloss shiny finish is lovely on its own, but now to have a little bit more twinkle, maybe a little bit of like dimension from these added pearls to the formula, I think will not only create just a beautiful lip on its own, but just will make it more streamlined in terms of you wanting a gloss that doesn't necessarily have a base of color like her previous gloss embraces have, but more of like that sparkle sheen to the lip, which is why I was hopping between Dancing Rose and Silent Sun, because Silent Sun has the more gold iridescence. It says here, the finest dense gold pearl swirled into a transparent glossy base. You know, you can't go wrong with that. These retail for $25 each. I believe that was the original price for when these released, I think last year. The Gloss Embrace is a formula that I enjoy. It definitely is a harmony between a makeup product and a lip treatment. I think that's what Lisa wanted to accomplish with this formula, where you do get the color, you get the shine without the stickiness and the heaviness on the lips, but there is an apparent, I think, feel of conditioning, of softening of the lips from the different oils in the formula. And with Lisa Eldridge lipstick products, the way she describes these shades is immense. You are pulled in to that experience, to that vision. With that said, I had to get Sorcery, a cool toned earthy rose with a touch of mauve. That describes my favorite color besides terracotta. Okay, the earthy rose with the touch of mauve. This is what I have on now. Okay, one swipe will give you sheer your lips but better, and built up is a total 90s indie girl. This is just a profoundly beautiful shade, and as Lisa had said in her description, Sorcery does give me my lips but better, but it doesn't deliver such a heavy dose of pink, which is sometimes what I struggle with lip gloss products that are too rosy or too medium pink. Sorcery, again, the earthy rosiness with the mauve nuance in the formula, or in the color I should say, is right up my alley. I mean, I probably should get more of these, because compared to Affair, which I have here, this is an earthy soft caramel brown with easy cool girl vibes. So Sorcery is going to give you more of that mauve tone, and Affair is going to give you more of that warmer caramel color. I don't want to open this because I have a new one. This was a backup, by the way. I don't know where my other Affair is. Hopefully I can find it, but these are the colors side by side, and I do really love Sorcery, again, for just its more rosier hue, and like Lisa had said, you can build this up so it just has a little more body to the look, whereas Affair is going to have just that softer caramel hue to it overall. I then proceeded to buy 2 velvet lip shades from the last release, because I only grabbed Sorcery and that shade is still sold out. Everyone is heavily anticipating when it will be back in stock. But alongside Sorcery, many of you had said that Velvet Rain, Velvet Enchantment were just gorgeous. I was looking at Velvet Duchess as well, but I picked up Velvet Rain and Velvet Enchantment. And with Velvet Rain, it says here a rain-soaked rose, muted natural medium pink, a blend of warm and cool undertones at its heart that pick up the natural tones of the lips whilst enlivening the face. Like I said before, pinks can be a little tricky on me, but Velvet Rain is a shade that it's muted, but there's just enough pink, like the description laid out, to give you a little bit of life, but it doesn't warrant that much attention overall like Velvet Beauty does for me. Velvet Muse, it could be a little show-stopping as well, or Velvet Blush. That's, I feel, like a more cool tone pink, but Velvet Rain is absolutely beautiful. It's like teetering on like a rosy red shade, but the nuance of it is so subtle, and I would probably wear this lipstick solo with a little bit of mascara and maybe a blush that coincides with the shade so it could have a monochromatic moment on the face. And next up we have Velvet Enchantment, which is beguiling and wild, muted red madder rose, a classic fairy tale in a lip color. Same thing with reds, man. You know, sometimes I just want a moment that's not too much, but a moment. Low-key. And Velvet Enchantment does just that. It's the right amount of red, as someone had said in my live, like a raspberry red, right? There is a little bit of vibrancy because of the color itself, but it's muted at the same time, so it doesn't warrant more makeup for me. When I wear like an intense red, like Natasha's Stiletto lipsticks that are beautiful, by the way, that lipstick, especially Emilia, that's my favorite out of the two. Gigi's gorgeous, but Emilia is like mwah. That for me, I feel the need to maybe apply a little bit of wing liner, a little bit of mascara, you know, maybe a little shadow through the crease for structure. When I apply Velvet Enchantment, it's fine all by itself. I could go mascara free. I'll fluff up the brows for sure, but it's such a great color to have when you feel like wearing red, but you don't want to do all the things when it comes to wearing a red lipstick. For it to not appear out of place, it's like, did you just put that on to try on? Are you gonna do, no, you're not gonna do anything else? Okay, I don't feel that way with Velvet Enchantment, so I am beyond pleased with both Velvet Enchantment and Velvet Rain, with how they look on my skin tone. And I definitely will wear those shades more often as spring approaches. I just think they're so spring appropriate. I mean, beyond. And Velvet Duchess, I'm eyeing real hard. What does it say here? A clear, clean, deep red garnet. So sumptuous. It's almost scandalous. Yeah, okay, so that's what I'm saying. Velvet Duchess is gonna be more of a moment than Velvet Enchantment. I will have to dial up the commitment meter a little higher, which maybe don't want to do for an everyday event, like going to the gym. I will go to the gym with Velvet Enchantment 100%, but Velvet Duchess, I feel I gotta be a little more strategic with. So those were the lip products that I purchased. Now, on to the liquid Lurex shadows. Lurex, I bought 4. I thought that was a reasonable choice. I really wanted Zora, that sumptuous cool brown or cool brown bronze. It sounded phenomenal. It is sold out, unfortunately, so I decided to go with shades that I didn't necessarily have in the FetishEYES lineup because I didn't want any overlaps between the brands. And just to quickly show you the component differences, here I have Platnum Bronze from Pat McGrath, and this is the Lisa Eldridge liquid shadow or Lurex shadow in Titania. So the component is smaller, and I believe here, let me pull up the price so I don't say anything wrong. These retail for $27, and you get, I think it's like 2 point something mils of product, whereas the FetishEYES is $29 and you get 6 point something mils of product. So you do get more product, just for like $2 more. So that is the difference. They're both made in Italy. I would say though that the component from Lisa is more luxe looking. You have the standard logo on the top of the cap, and you also have the locking mechanism when you turn to ensure the product is closed, the brush gold finish, and then the plastic component here where you see the shade. Whereas Pat's component, you know, not as luxurious looking or feeling. I would say it's a little lighter in the entirety of the design. You have the hieroglyph part of Pat's logo here on the front and the gold lining around the cap, and it also has the same locking mechanism on here as well. So I definitely prefer Lisa's component design, but you get a lot more product from Pat. And before we get into the swatches, I would say the standout difference for me from trying both is that Pat's formula has a little more sparkly arcly, right? That's not a bad or good thing per se. It really depends on the wearer. If you like more reflective finishes, more hardy, a hardier sparkly presentation, then you'll probably go with Pat. But if you want a little more subdued, a little sparkle too, because depending on the shade from the Lurex lineup will determine how much sparkle is in there. So why don't I start with Viola, which I had to get because anything plum, forget it. So here we have Viola, and you could probably detect from the component that it's very much plum leaning. And this type of a shade I adore just as one and done moment. And the actual description reads, a gilded royal plum with gently shimmering pink pearls. So here we have Viola, right? It's super smooth as you see. Not one that has sparkle like, let's say, Liza or even Anais from the Lurex lineup, but the shade I wanted to pair this with was with Pat McGrath's Smoldering Seduction, right? So this is more mahogany leaning, and I believe Smoldering Seduction has a little more sparkle in there. It's hard to detect, but when you blend it out, you could see just more of like that reflective finish on the color. Next up, we have Titania from Lisa's Lurex line. An antique tarnished blackened gold with a multicolored mix of glittering pearls. And this definitely, out of all of Lisa's shades, ones that I think have a little more sparkle. And why don't we pair that with Pat's Platnum Bronze, my favorite out of the entire Fetish lineup. So Platnum Bronze, like you see here, more of like a taupey bronze. Why don't I pull up the description from Pat's site? I had meant to do that in the original video, but I failed to do so because I had to click on each shade to grab, I think, the description. So let's see here. Oh, never mind. Can't find it on the website. Let me go to Pat's IG. Platinum Bronze is a luminous cool bronze with sparkling platinum pearl. So definitely cooler than you see here in Titania. Titania, more of that antique finish. Next up from the Lurex lineup, I have Anais, which is this beautiful sage green. Now, the reason why I didn't go with the other shade in the Lurex lineup that was more green leaning is because I thought it would have been too closely related to Cosmic Chartreuse, and that's Daphne, right? So Anais is an antique pewter with sage green undertones, and that's what I have on the lids. And just to briefly mention, in the demo here, I paired Anais with Lisa's Vega eyeshadow palette, which I thought was more than perfect. I started off the look by placing Anais all over both lids, then went in with French gray through the crease, placed some turbulence on the outer lid to build that body around the eyes to create those smoky brackets, went in with Supernova on the inner corner because I thought that color and just finish paired beautifully well with Anais. Then a little bit with Smoke and Mirrors on the outer regions of my lash line, both top and lower. I love Smoke and Mirrors. It just is like this cobalt grayish type of a shade that creates smoke, but it doesn't overwhelm the eyes. And with Anais, Do you see the finished look? Okay. Another palette I want to pair Anais with is Natasha Denona's Retro Glam. You know, with the sage tones in there, I think it would further bring out any saginess in Anais even more, whereas these shadows is more so bringing out the cool nature of Anais. So if you wanted the more sagey green experience, then you would pair it with more sagey green shades, and that's what I want to do down the line. Now with Cosmic Chartreuse, this is going to have more of a literal chartreuse shade to it. They could be paired together 100%. And Anais for me, well, just looking at this from the tube, Twilight Platinum is definitely more, I'm going to do it here, more overall silver. You see that? Whereas Anais, I think you can detect more of that green, especially when you see Twilight Platinum, and it's more silver leaning hue. And why I wanted to purchase Liza. Liza is like this more blackened, well, let me read the description. An intense charcoal shot through with silvery flashes of stardust combined with a heady mix of magenta, violet, blue, green, and disco ball silver pearls. Liza is a lot. It's a beautiful shade all on its own, and one I would rely on for like that heavy evening eye, right? So there's a little more serving of just blackened charcoal base here from Liza, whereas Twilight Platinum on its own, and you could see it in the demo in my original Fetish Eyes video, more of a silvery experience, right? Which is cool, and a color initially I wasn't crazy about, but the shine on Twilight Platinum is insane. And if you were to pair it with Liza, these two together, oh my gosh. Now that you've seen the comparison swatches, why don't we come in a little closer so you can see these on the eyes and in action. That's enough. Let's start off with Viola, and like the pat shadows, I find it extremely easy to go from applicator to lid, and most definitely using my Sonia G Fusion Worker to whip that along the lid and in a downward fashion here under the crease, because as I had discovered with pat shadows, the base of the liquid shades serve as, I think, enough for any type of gradient that occurs when you start blending this texture out. And you can see I'm not taking it far beyond the lash line. I'm keeping it conservative, and the formula is easy enough where you can just pat it down around the edges so that it creates that natural gradient effect where the color kind of disperses and looks less when it gets closer to the crease. And here you have Viola again. I adore the tone of the shade where it's, I think, beautiful on its own. It has a little bit of smokiness for sure. I'm like looking down like, where did I put this? Where this is how it looks just on the lid. However, if you wanted to bring it all the way around the eye for a more encompassing look, just place a little bit under your lash line. You don't need a ton. And softly taking the tip of my Fusion Worker here to spread it along the lash line and to take any residual onto the lid. So wrapping it up and around so that the color doesn't extend past that endpoint that I already established here up top. Now you're more than welcome to bring in a matte shade, right? If you wanted to further refine the edges, I think it just fine to stick with what we already have without using any additional product. And this is my Fusion blender, just relying on the bristles themselves to further manipulate the product. So you can see it has nice sparkle. I can detect that pink pearl finish. It's not as in your face as like Liza or Anais. You saw Anais on my previous demo and when I began the video, that has incredible shine. Viola has more of like a burnished finish, which I think beautiful. Like, see here, it just is so lovely by itself. If you wanted to bump up the shine a little bit more after you've applied the shadow on your lid and lower lash line. If you wanted to take that extra step, you can apply a little bit more. And then instead of using a brush, perhaps use a finger to tap more product onto the center of your lid. So that could be the spotlight point of the entire look, where more light will reflect off the center and the color will just appear more robust in nature. I know we're focusing on the Lurex shadows, but I just have to apply Luna Rose on the inner corner. I think that would just pair beautifully with Viola. Like, come on, are you kidding me? I need a brush though to blend this out. Hello? Very lightly here over Viola so it could overlap, wrapping it down on the inner part of the lower lash line. Ooh, that's lovely. Yeah, man. I know you're dying to see Liza. Or do you want to see Titania first? Ooh, let's do Liza first because Liza, she's show-stopping. I think appropriately named. Is it inspired by Liza Minnelli? I feel like it is. Definitely more of a charcoal base compared to Twilight Bronze. You could already see just like that depth of color. Reminds me of Pat's Falcon Noir. That would be just gorgeous. Where Liza, compared to Falcon Noir, definitely has more shine and sparkle. 100%. Falcon Noir in the Chromolux formula, which I liken to what's happening with Viola, more of like a burnished satin finish on the skin. And like you saw what I did on the first eye, I simply tap in and under the crease and use whip-like motions, very short in nature, so that the color doesn't get away from me. It stays right where I need it to just hold, so it doesn't kind of get out of control. But I find the Lurex eyeshadows pretty easy to blend and to apply, where there's enough wetness initially to get that blend going, but they set, I think, pretty well quickly, but not so quickly that you have to feel rushed. But here's Liza. Isn't that beautiful? Even just on the lid, it's like, woo. And of course, taking some under the lash line. You don't have to take this step. I think just wearing shadow on the lash line and keeping the lower lash line bare is a lovely way to go. Definitely more of like, I think, not, I guess vintage. I definitely feel more of a vintage approach when I just apply heartier shades like these on the lid solo and not place anything on my lower lash line. And again, with my Fusion blender, just the very edges. So you see there, whatever shadow was on the skin, this brush is dense enough, not too dense, however, but enough to gently manipulate that final blend so the gradient looks soft, but the color won't travel so high. So the base of the color lessens as it travels from lash line close to the brow, which is what I want. I don't want it to look like this up here. And there you go. Liza's so pretty. Such a one and done moment. Listen, especially if you wanted to establish or rather achieve a smoky eye and you're like, you know what, I've seen all the smoky eye tutorials, Alicia, that I could stand. I don't want to have to deal with the transition shade, okay? I just want to place something on my lid. One color, okay? Not 5. Whip it across, have it blend easy, and get my smoky eye. That's what Liza will do. And as you saw, took in some Twilight Platinum because I thought this would be a fitting pairing with Liza. Especially, ooh, you could apply a little bit of this on the center if you wanted. Instead, however, just placing a dot, you don't need a ton, of Liza right on the center of my lid. And then, like I did with Viola, using my finger to tap and disperse it across. So we have, that's what we're looking for. Just a shinier serving of that shade. Here we have Viola on one eye, that beautiful soft plum finish, and Liza on the other where we can have like that smoke and sparkle all at the same time, easily achieved with just one product. And if you have both the FetishEYES and the Lurex shadows, you could go to town in combining these shades. I'm thrilled with Liza. It's just, look at it. It's so pretty. And I feel for the sake of just bringing everything together, let's apply a little bit of Velvet Fawn. Huh? Ooh, that's pretty. Nothing like a soft pinky beige with smoky eyes. Now that we've taken a look at both Viola and Liza, why don't we go in with Titania? And since we already saw Anais in action with the Vega palette, let's see what Titania can do all on its own, especially if you want it like a smoky day moment. Not quite this, maybe a little softer, but you can't go wrong with antiqued black and gold. Let's get it going. I originally said I was going to apply Titania on both eyes, but what I want to do is apply Titania on one eye and Platnum Bronze on the other, so I could get a feel of both formulas at the same time. How does that sound, fam? Going in with Titania first, this side, and you could just detect this lovely tone, truly antique in nature. This will look devastatingly beautiful with Natasha Denona's gold palette. What a pairing. My gosh. This all over the lid with one of those just neutral sandy brown shades. And if you wanted more of like a pop of gold, you could apply one of those metallics on the center of the lid if you wanted. There's so many ways to go with that palette, but to have Titania, ooh, I think beautiful. But you can see here immediately, just from the shade itself, how well it just blends out, and the tone of it, although antique and very shiny, I think just beautiful by itself, right? It gives a little bit of smoke just from the shade itself, and especially if you bring it up high through the crease, a little beyond that point. Again, I just like to tap and whip out and not necessarily go back and forth unless it's with a round brush. So let me find my Fusion blender again, just very lightly here on the edges. And you're more than welcome to introduce another shadow. It could be a satin finish, a matte finish. You don't have to just stick with the liquid shadows. I think the point to having a versatile formula such as the Lurex shadows is that it allows you to combine with different finishes, right? And you don't run into texture issues or it looking weird on the eyes. They work well, I feel, with other shadow formulas, because ultimately I think that's what you would want to do. You would just want to combine all the makeup. So here's Titania by itself. Great shine. I would categorize this with Liza, having that high pearl finish more so than shades like Viola, right? A little more subdued. Now in with Platnum Bronze. And Platnum Bronze, or you know what, maybe this is closely or more closely related to Bronze Bijou, but you see Bronze Bijou a lot more warm than Titania. But where did I put it? I just had it. Here we go, Platnum Bronze, which based on the description from Zora, I feel like Platnum Bronze could be a Zora dupe. I'm not entirely sure. Let me know down below. Don't want to start any rumors. Since this is cool in undertone, even though it says bronze, maybe Zora does have more of like a brown leaning hue overall. Again, just tapping around like I did with all my demos. I find it the easiest way to control the distribution of the product, right? Because since it is slick when you place it on the lid, you don't necessarily want it to do what it wants. You just want to kind of control its placement, use light quick motions here to pull it through the crease if you wanted, and a little bit beyond. So there is a lot more sparkle in the pat shadows, 100%. Again, that's not necessarily better or worse, but that's just the nature of the shadows. It's like I could just detect a lot more pearl in Pat's formula, where I can see a lot more shine. Does that make sense? More shine versus reflectivity. The reflectivity I see in the Pat shadows, whereas there's more of like a pearl shine, or sheen, I should say, in the Lurex shadows. Gotta place Platnum Bronze on the lower lash line, okay? Can't have it any other way. You gotta do it. Platnum Bronze is just so pretty. Titania, though, lovely as well. In terms of the blendability and the application, when you hit the doe foot applicator on the lids, they feel similar. Like, they both have a similar consistency and feel upon that first application. I also detect similarities in the ease of blend. I can rely on the same technique for both, as I had showed from the beginning when these demos started. I don't feel like I have to switch my technique at all when I change products. I guess depending on the shadow, that the Lurex shadows have more of like this metallic finish, whereas Pat shadows definitely have more sparkle. They have more sparkle, 100%. That could mean if you have texture on the skin, sparkle might be yay or nay. Same thing with metallic. So you have to go back into your memory banks and recollect, okay, when I use a shadow with this type of a finish, if it's a powder one, how does it look? How does it make my lids look? Do they make them look crepey, dry? Because the advantage of a liquid eyeshadow, especially if you have hooded lids or small eyes, is because they set fairly quickly, you don't run the risk of the shadow traveling to your crease. Like, they stay on the lid. And if you wanted to use sparkle but felt like you couldn't, because a lot of these powder hybrid formulas have a lot of slip and emollients to them, not ideal to be used on hooded lids because of the transfer issue, right? But the amount of sparkle found in Pat's FetishEYES, and with the faster setting time, I think an ideal scenario if you have an eye shape that's not advantageous with high shine types of formulas that can transfer easily, you could have your sparkle and not worry about it. It's gonna stay. Which one do I like more? I think they're both fantastic, especially because Lisa's Lurex line has a larger range of shades, and Pat just released her liquid eyeshadow lineup, so hopefully we can see more shades from her, maybe more copper, oranges, magentas, violets, the plum shades. Maybe we'll get like a blue. I think a lot more shades can be covered in the FetishEYES lineup because we already have so many beautiful shades from the Lurex eyeshadow lineup. It really all depends, you know what I mean? It's hard for me to pick one. So my bias is that I love Pat McGrath. I have more Pat McGrath videos on my channel than I do Lisa, but I adore Lisa as a makeup artist and makeup historian. So I hold Lisa and Pat in high regard, right? I just think they each have something different to offer, right? They just add a diversity to the makeup industry. You know, Pat is giving you couture, runway, just like majorness, right? That's staying on brand. And Lisa Eldridge for me is like makeup explorer, makeup anthropologist, historian, where with all of her experiences, they are found in the products and the shades that she develops. So both Pat and Lisa serve two entirely different purposes in my makeup experience and makeup collection. So I think it's fine for you to prefer one over the other based on your preference, on your skin type, on your eye shape, how you like your shadows to look, the finishes, the colors, right? There's so many things to consider when picking one over the other. And I think when you do, it's not necessarily saying one is bad and one is good. I think the conversation is far more nuanced than that. and just something for you to consider when picking either. From what I can say, again, you have more color selection from the Lurex lineup, but you have more sparkle from the FetishEYES lineup. The FetishEYES, you do get more product for a similar price. They're both made in Italy. If you don't like sparkle reflectivity, you're more of like a metallic sheen burnished finish, then you'll consider the Lurex. Those are the standout comparisons to me between the FetishEYES and the Lurex shadows. Definitely for me, just staying in the Lisa realm for a moment, these are phenomenal. I'm happy that I finally purchased a few shades. Now I kind of want all of them. Just the ease of use and how I feel liquid eyeshadow finishes further elevate your eye look without a ton of work. You don't have to wet your brush. You don't have to use glitter glue or whatever, different types of mediums to create that high shine finish. You just rely on the product itself. Like what I said with Liza, if you want a smoky eye and just use one product, you don't have to worry about priming, using 5 transition shades, and then using a pencil and using 10 brushes at once. You just use the one liquid eyeshadow with one brush. That's it. And you got your charcoal smoky eye with the glitz at the same time, just from one product. And with the gloss Embraces, thrilled with the new shades. I just bought 2, but happy to see that Lisa introduced the more pearl finishes to her gloss Embrace lineup. Beyond happy with Velvet Rain and Velvet Enchantment. I think those colors are just gorgeous and will then inspire me to wear more colorful lipsticks as spring approaches, especially when they're that type of like muted, subdued feel of things. So good. Let me know, fam, what your favorite liquid Lurex eyeshadow shades are, because these released some time ago. If you have Velvet Rain and Velvet Enchantment, you know, I want to know your favorites down below from Lisa Eldridge. If you have both the FetishEYES and Lurex eyeshadows, what differences and similarities you observe. I would love to know your thoughts down below. I will see you down in those comments. And until then, that is a wrap. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope this video helped, and if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up or maybe consider subscribing to my channel. And until then, I will see you on here again with another review tutorial, liquid eyeshadow extravaganza, or live stream. Perhaps I'll have one for the main channel coming up. Take care, and I'll see you again soon.